He arrived early enough that the room was still settling into itself. The courtroom had that neutral, institutional calm that made everyone look smaller than they were. Rows of benches worn smooth by other people's anxieties, the low hum of air conditioning fighting the quiet. He took a seat along the side wall, not with the families, not with counsel. He chose a place that didn't invite questions. When his parents came in, they didn't see him at first. They were already arranged into their usual shapes, his mother leaning slightly forward, lips tight with anticipation, his father walking behind her, shoulders squared, expression set as if bracing for embarrassment. Then his mother noticed him. Her laugh was quick, almost affectionate in tone, as though the situation amused her more than it surprised her. As she leaned toward his father and said something under her breath. He didn't hear the words, but he did in the words. His father shook his head once, slowly, deliberately, an old gesture that meant still not enough. He felt it register in his chest the way weather does. Not sharp, not new. They had always assumed he would end up on the wrong side of rooms like this. Not a criminal exactly, just someone peripheral. A footnote. Someone who complicated family narratives rather than validating them. He didn't look back at them. He kept his eyes forward, on the bench where the judge would sit. The case on the docket was minor, procedural, the kind of thing courts processed without drama. Everyone present understood their roles. Everyone except him, at least from the outside. To the room, he was just another observer, maybe a relative, maybe a curiosity. The judge entered, files tucked under his arm, glasses already halfway down his nose. He took his seat, adjusted his robe, and began scanning the paperwork with the practiced indifference of someone expecting nothing unusual. Then he looked up. It wasn't immediate. His gaze moved methodically across the room, ticking off faces, stopping briefly on the attorneys, the defendant, the clerk. When it reached the side wall, it stalled. He blinked once. Then again. His hand tightened around the pen. He leaned forward, just slightly, as if correcting a trick of the light. The room felt the change before it understood it, an interruption in rhythm, a pause where no pause had been scheduled. The judge's face drained of color. "Dear God," he said, not into the microphone, not for the record. Just aloud. "Is that really him?" The clerk froze. The attorneys stopped shuffling papers. A murmur rippled through the benches like a held breath escaping all at once. Everyone turned. His parents turned last. His mother's smile collapsed into something uncertain, unfinished. His father's posture shifted, shoulders lowering a fraction, as if gravity had increased without warning. The judge stood. That alone would have been enough. Judges did not stand for spectators. He stepped down from the bench, hands still trembling slightly, and approached him with the kind of caution reserved for unexpected authority. "I wasn't informed you'd be here," the judge said, his voice quieter now, steadier but still edged with disbelief. "I wasn't asked," he replied. It was the first thing he'd said aloud in the room. The judge nodded once, sharply. He turned back toward the bench, toward the clerk. "This proceeding is being paused," he said, effective immediately. The word paused carried weight. It changed the room's center of gravity. He didn't explain himself. He didn't need to. The judge addressed him formally now, by title, by full name. It landed like documentation being stamped. Understanding arrived unevenly. One attorney went pale. Another straightened too quickly. The clerk's fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure what to record. His parents stared at him as if he had rearranged himself while they weren't looking. They had known what he did for a living, technically. They had just never believed it mattered. Never believed it would cross back into their world with force. The judge asked him to approach the bench, not as a witness, not as family, but as oversight. As something institutional. He stood. His movements were unhurried. He passed his parents without looking at them. He could feel his mother's attention on his back, sharp and searching, they're trying to retrofit years of dismissal into a new explanation. At the bench, the judge spoke in low tones. There was no dramatics, no accusation, just facts aligning themselves into a different order. Jurisdiction. Conflict. Procedural error that could no longer be ignored. The case could not proceed as scheduled. Not today. Possibly not at all. That was the external shift clear. Unmistakable. The defendant was led out. The attorneys began gathering their things, confusion written plainly across their faces. The audience buzzed with speculation, filling the vacuum left by certainty. His parents remained seated. His mother finally stood, hands clasped too tightly in front of her. She opened her mouth, then closed it. There was no script for this version of him. His father watched him with narrowed eyes, not angry exactly, calculating, as if trying to determine whether this authority was temporary or structural. He didn't stay long after that. There was nothing left for him to do. The judge thanked him. The clerk nodded with a respect that hadn't existed an hour earlier. As he turned to leave, his mother reached out, fingers brushing his sleeve. "You could have told us," she said. He stopped. Not because of the words, but because of the assumption underneath them. "I did," he said evenly. "Just not in a way you recognized." He left before she could respond. Outside, the air was brighter than he expected. He stood on the courthouse steps for a moment, feeling the afterimage of the room fade. There was no rush of victory, no sense of closure, just a quiet, unsettling recalibration. His parents would talk about this later. They would revise the story. They might even soften toward him, or they might not. Vindication, he understood now, did not come bundled with reconciliation. What mattered was simpler. They could no longer laugh under their breath. They could no longer shake their heads as if the future had already been decided. The truth had entered the room without asking permission, and it had stayed.